probably going to start crying. The children were devastated, and Joanna was 6, and it really affected Joanna because she saw it as, oh, Daddy's leaving again, and he's not coming back. And I can remember a conversation, and he set her down. She was just bawling her head off. She said, but you're not coming back. And he said, babe, I'm leaving. I've got to go for business, but I'm coming back. And he said, if I don't come back, it's because God is taking me to heaven, and I will see y'all there. And he said, I promise you that when I leave from now on, that I will come back. You can be assured of that.
Hey everyone, welcome. So this is our special guest, Alice Beam.
So this is a new experience for me, guys.
This is all new. She kept saying, am I going to see them? No.
I wanted to see
but
you
she
guys.
wants to. She wants to see all of you.
I want to see you.
She does. But first of all, some of you may be wondering why we're doing this. So I would love for you to begin and share why you're here.
I am here because, first of all, my daughter Kimberly asked me to come on the show. And I do not tell Kimberly no.
She's not going to tell me no.
I won't tell her no. But more than that, guys, I'm here because we are passionate about helping marriages, doing absolutely everything that we can to help people through their difficulties, their crisis. That's where we work mostly, with people that are in crisis. And that's just a passion. I love families, and my passion are the children. I just tear up when I think about the children that are in unhappy homes where the couples aren't getting along. And to give families hope. There is hope. There is so much hope. Mm-hmm. So that's why I'm here.
Mm-hmm. And so tell a little bit about your story. So for those of you for those who may be joining who don't know, you're Dr. Joe Beam's wife.
Oh yes, I'm Alice Beam. I am his first wife, and I'm also his second wife.
First and second.
So
she married him twice.
I did marry him twice. And I guess if I had to, I'd do it again, but we're not going to get there. So
not going to have to be a third time.
I'm not going to have to do that. We were in the ministry for 15 years. When we divorced, I had never worked, never had to work, so I had to go out and find a job. But before that, in our first marriage, I was not a confident person. I did not feel like I was appreciated in our first marriage. Joe is a very strong personality. I honestly, guys, did not even have an identity. My identity was Joe Beam. I would introduce myself as Mrs. Joe Beam. It actually embarrasses me now. I mean, not that I am not very proud to be Mrs. Joe Beam, because I am. I absolutely love Joe, and I am extremely blessed to be Mrs. Joe Beam. But the first part of our marriage, I didn't have an identity. I did not even know who I was. I was just so... And Joe will admit, he beat me down a lot because he was a strong personality, and I'm not. I like everything to go smoothly. I cannot stand conflict. So that's kind of where...
He was overpowering.
He was very overpowering.
In the first marriage.
Very overpowering in the first marriage. So, that's kind of... Did I kind of cover it?
So then you divorced.
Oh, yes. We divorced for 3 years. And he would see the children. The children were devastated. Angel is our special needs daughter. She was 13 at the time, but she missed her dad terribly. And Joanna was 6, and it really affected Joanna. even until this day, she has effects from the marriage breakup, from our divorce. She does not have, she has confidence, but not relationship confidence that she should have. She feels abandonment issues. You know, she just she's had a lot of things to work through because of that. And guys, I see it on both ends. I can see it through having children and having gone through divorce and how that affected them. Joanna and Angel. And then we were blessed when we got back together. We wanted another child, and we were blessed with Kimberly. And Kimberly grew up when we had healed and were beginning to work with marriages. And so she grew up in a home where, there were disagreements, but we knew how to work them out. Mm-hmm. And nothing like a dysfunctional home. So Kimberly is extremely confident and just really secure in who she is, and and handles her marriage very well.
Well, so when you got back together mm-hmm. and got remarried, mm-hmm. So a lot of people have questions about how, why did you take him back? How did we get? But before we get to that, just to continue speaking, because I know Joanna is watching. Hello, Joanna.
Hi, darling.
But that's something Joanna and I have even talked about, yes. And even tried to get her to come on Instagram and talk about it.
Mm-hmm. I really want her to. I think that would be,
not that we're trying to get you on, but it just goes to show. So for those of you who are in a place right now where, so there's some of you who are saying, well, the kids aren't going to be affected by our decision. And our family can tell you, because we have the situation of mm-hmm. the sister who has gone through it and the sister mm-hmm. who hasn't, mm-hmm. and it has different effects. But then there's mm-hmm. others of you who are saying, this is happening and I can't control that my husband is left or gone, or my wife is left or gone, or whatever. I can't make them stay. Well, what you can do is be there for your kids the best mm-hmm. that you can now. Mm-hmm. And learn to co-parent well. You still need to forgive. You still need to do all of those same mm-hmm. things, because that is going to be what is best for the children. So if people ask more questions about that, we can get there. Mm-hmm. It just all of our relationships, especially from from the relationships we experience in childhood, mm-hmm. end up having an effect on us later in our lives. Mm-hmm. And so when you think about that legacy that you're making right now, be sure that you consider that when you make your decisions. We have a lot of questions. The first one I'm going to ask you that I'm sure people have gone ahead and asked is, why did you go back? So you were divorced for 3 years.
Yes.
Why go back? You had moved on. You were dating other people. Mm-hmm. You had gotten a job. Mm-hmm. Why did you go back?
I knew, the 3 years that we were divorced, it gave me a lot of time to think and to realize that, I was not perfect in our first marriage. I had my faults. I had a lot of them. Everybody thought, oh, Alice, she's just so perfect, and Joe is just this terrible person, But the bottom line, I realized what I did to help contribute to the downfall of the marriage. I was not responsible for what Joe did, because that was his decision, but I sure contributed to him going down that pathway by not being there when he needed me desperately, when I just don't want to get into the background of it, but he was a very popular minister that had some beliefs that our brotherhood did not agree with. So, and I did not stand behind him with that. But, the more over the years, the 3 years that we were apart, he would come see the children. And about the third year that that last year, we began to communicate some. And I just knew that Joe I could feel that he was missing us. I really could. I could tell. And of course, I had moved on. I had started seeing someone. So the Sunday afternoon that he called me and asked me if I would consider coming back, I said, I've got to think about this, because I didn't want the marriage we had before. I knew that. But I knew in my heart that Joe was a good guy, that he was a good man. I knew he was, that had done a really bad thing. And so I said, let me talk to some people and get some advice. And so when I did, the elders of the church told me not to take him back, couldn't trust him. Of course, my family was very concerned. They loved Joe. They had really loved Joe. They thought the world of him, but they were not happy with him at all. The way he hurt me and the kids. But there was just something in my core being, my core values, that just would not let me rest. Because over the years I had thought, well, what if one day he asked me to come back? Should I go back? Should I not? But when I took that 2 weeks to think about it, all I could think about was, okay, I could go back. There are no guarantees, but you know what? There's not any guarantees with another relationship. The guarantee you have with the other relationship is the problems that they're bringing out of their past into the relationship, if that makes any sense to y'all. But everybody has problems, and I knew that I knew our problems, and I knew that Joe was a good man that had done a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Y'all, I cannot say I was madly in love with him when I went back to him. I loved him, but I was not madly in love with him. The main thing I was thinking about is the children. I could not imagine Joanna and Angela being raised by another guy. When Joanna married, which she did, she has a wonderful husband, I could not imagine another man walking her down the aisle. I just could not imagine it. And and I just wanted to give it a chance. I went into it realizing it may or may not work, but I was determined. I was determined that I was going to do absolutely everything in my power that I could to make it work. Did I answer that at all?
I don't remember what the question was, but I think you answered it.
I'm so sorry. I can't.
No, people love it. I know people love it. So one person asked the question. No, don't apologize. It's great. One person says, so what advice do you have for the women who are being forced into single motherhood because their husband's leaving them or divorcing them? How did you handle becoming a single mom?
Well, it was, y'all, I'm not lying to you. Of course, I'm not a counselor and I've never had counseling experience, but I'll just tell you what I did. I was fortunate in that I had my family very close by for support. Mm-hmm. It took a while. I mean, just the shock of it and the anger and the hurt, just the devastating hurt down. But I pulled myself up and I decided that I was going to do the best thing I could is to work on myself. I wanted to get a job. I wanted to prove to myself that I could make it on my own. And I did. I found a job. I was very good at it. I was able to make a good living for me and the children. We got by. And that's what I worked on. If you've done any of the courses through Marriage Helper, you've probably familiar with pies. And actually, guys, that's what I was working on. I was working on pies, not realizing that's what I was doing. But when I got a job, I became very, it helped me to gain confidence in myself. And I got emotionally stronger, physically stronger, spiritually stronger. That's what I worked on. I worked on myself. Mm-hmm. And that's really what helped me get through those first, that first year and a half.
Mm-hmm. And so what led you to, someone asked, how did you identify that he was a good person who had done bad things and not a bad person who had done bad things?
I just knew the person that Joe had always been. I knew that he cared about people, that he cared about right and wrong. I knew that he knew right from wrong. But I felt like over that time that the devil just got into the situation, as the devil does so many times. When spiritual people are doing good things, they attack those people. And I honestly, when I look back on it, and when I was looking back then, I felt like that Joe was under spiritual attack, because he became a person that I didn't recognize. Even though he was a very strong personality, and he was very, very strong with me, he still was not a person I recognized for about 2 years, a good 2 years. He just became somebody different. And then as into the third year, as I said, I honestly think that he saw, he's told me, he began to see a change in me. He began to see that I was more confident, that I was more my own person, that I was not clingy and beggy. Oh, y'all, I was so beggy those first 5 or 6 months. I mean, if I'd looked at myself in the mirror, I wouldn't even like myself.
Which 5 or 6? The first 5 or 6 months that you were divorced?
Yeah, when he first left.
Before you were divorced?
Before we were divorced. It was about a year, close to a year, before the divorce was final. And then it was 2 years that we were divorced. And, when I would see him, I would cry. And I thought to myself, well, if I cried enough or if I begged enough, he would feel sorry for us and come back. Well, no. When I think on that, no wonder, honestly, y'all, no wonder. I mean, when I look at it and think about it now, I wouldn't have wanted, if it were the table was turned or whatever, I wouldn't want to come into somebody, to a relationship when somebody is begging and pleading and crying. That is not attractive. So the stronger you can be, the better. Mm-hmm. Did I answer that question?
Yes, you did. So some other people are asking what... Well, the questions they're asking, I know what they're looking for, but so they're saying, well, how did he act during the divorce, and what was happening while you were separated? Because these people are probably in that right now, and they're trying to see where it is. Yes,
he acted very cold for a couple of years. He really did. He would be very distant when he would come. He would pick the children up. He would take them, usually back to where he lived, and keep them for the weekend and then bring them back. But he was just very distant and just very little conversation for that first couple of years. Very little conversation, just more or less business-like, So, and it would just, it would break my heart. And then the longer that went on, I felt like there was just less hope. And that's when I really started putting myself into, what? I'm going to quit thinking about something that I don't know if it's going to, if he'll ever change. I don't know if we'll ever get back together, but I do know that I have got to live my life, and I've got to be there for the children, and I've got to be the best person I can be for them.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever not allow him to see the children?
No, I did not. I always allowed him to see the children. It was not the children's fault. They loved their daddy. He loved them. I wanted him to have a relationship with them. I never talked bad about Joe to them. Mm-hmm. When, I never did. I would always, if that, it's been 30-something years, but I'm sure, and that's one reason I would love for Joanna to come on the program so she can answer from the perspective of the daughter that went through it. Y'all guys, now, and I hope she will one day. If you see her, you'll fall in love with her. I mean, she's a wonderful person, and she has done so well. But she had a lot of hurt, and so I don't ever, I always tried to let their.
She said, "Y'all know I'll cry the whole time."
But that's okay. You know what, guys, and they'll understand. I cry. There are days when I'm answering questions in the workshop, I sit there and bawl like a baby. But that doesn't matter, does it, Kimberly? It really doesn't. And you've already got me crying now, Joanna. But she
Oh, goodness.
Anyway.
So a lot of people are asking, because a lot of people know the reason that you and Dad divorced was because of an affair.
Yes, absolutely.
And so a lot of people are asking, how did you, someone just said, "Don't be selfish, Joanna."
See, Joanna? You've got to come on. I was hoping you would have been here with us today. It's what I was hoping.
We'll do it next time. Okay, so how did you handle not comparing yourself, or did you compare yourself to the other woman? Was one question, but then ultimately we have to get to, how did you forgive, or did you forgive?
Okay, that's an excellent question. All of them are excellent questions. I don't want to say they aren't, but this one probably was the toughest one for me because she was a lot younger than me. So yeah, I did for a while. I compared because I wasn't as young. I wasn't as carefree. I had 2 children. But then I decided that, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go down that road. I've got more to deal with than I can deal with now. So I quit, for one thing, I quit going to church where she was, and that helped a lot.
And if it had been in this day and age, would you have followed her on Facebook?
No.
Would you have looked at her Instagram profile?
I would not have. Y'all, and I can absolutely say that I would not have, because I knew, well, back when I was trying to get over Joe, trying to move forward, I knew if I kept, following those rabbit trails or whatever you call it, that I could not get on with my life and be there for the children. I would be a basket case. If we'd have had internet and we'd have had, all the Facebook and all of that, I would have been a basket case trying to deal with my life and the children and all of that. And I just, can't do it. I just decided, this is his life. I prayed about it. I prayed so much. And there were lots of prayers going up. And I just prayed that I would be the best mother, the best person I could be when I was going through this. And so no, I would not have done that.
So then, forgiveness.
Okay, and so finally, 2 weeks later, I called Joe back, and I told him, yes, I wanted to try to work it out. And he immediately asked me to forgive him. And he had never asked me to forgive him before for anything. And that...
Wait, did you just say he never asked you, when you called him back to say yes, he still at that point never asked for forgiveness? At
that point, he asked me, would I be willing? He asked me on the phone, would please forgive me for everything I have done.
So that was 3 years after the divorce, and probably 3.5 after the everything.
Never, when I look back on it, I cannot remember a time, even when we would have fusses, in our first marriage, it was always, he would get it to where he was right.
Oh, he never asked for forgiveness for 15 years.
No. Yeah. No, I'd never remember that.
So the first time was then.
Was then. And that, I know this sounds like a small thing, but guys, it was huge, because I knew in my heart that he was serious, that he was really wanting to go down this road and to put the family back together. And I felt like, and like I said, I had been seeing for 5 or 6 months a change in Joe, a softening in Joe when we would see him. He would want to stay around more. He would want to talk more. Mm-hmm. And I could see that softening. And so I knew, that this was right. And then when the first time we saw each other after that, which was that weekend, I think, the next weekend, he told me, he said, now you can ask me anything you want to ask me about anything, and I am going to answer it honestly. He said, I will tell you anything you want to know, but you've got to realize if I tell you, I'll tell you, but I can't untell you. I thought about that a long time too, and I knew in my mind, the way my mind works and the way I am, that if I had any visuals, they wouldn't really be the real thing. I mean, it would just be something he'd be telling me. I knew I couldn't handle that. So I did not want to know any visuals, but more importantly than that was the fact that if I wanted to have known anything, he would have told me. Mm-hmm. And this is just my mind, y'all. Not everybody's like me. But in my mind, that's all I needed. To know I had access to that information if I wanted it. It's just that I didn't want that. But there are other things I did want to know about. And, he allowed me to, he gave me the checkbook. I handled all the finances. The phone bills. I could keep up with phone, everything he turned over. He was so transparent. If he was going to be late, he would call and tell me, I'm going to be late. This is where I am. This is if there had been cell phones, he would have done FaceTime and shown me. So he made me feel very, very secure in that. But I'm not saying we didn't have to have coaching and counseling. We did. But we got there. And and with help from not all counselors are the same. Not all coaches are the same. We had to go through a couple of counselors before we found a good one.
Okay, so a lot of people are asking questions like, so what did reconciliation look like? So you've already mentioned part of it.
I didn't even go into the last part of forgiveness. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Let me do this. So we were back together, and things were going well. Things were about 6 months. 5 or 6 months. It was going well. But there started being about 3 months into it, a dark place. I would just get up in the morning and things were, congenial, and we would sit, talk, he kissed me by, and, everything was good. But when he would leave, there was this cloud. It was like a darkness. And it hit me one day. I call her Sally Sue. Joe calls her Sally Sue because there are not many. If your name's Sally Sue, I know you're not the one that had the baby. But anyway, it's not you. But that's what I called it. And I realized the reason I was feeling this darkness and this just looming over me was I had not forgiven Sally Sue. I'd forgiven Joe. It was easy to forgive Joe, but, hey, Alice, you haven't forgiven this girl. You have got to forgive her. Now, I knew that God understood. I did not have to forgive her. I did not have to go to her and ask her to forgive me. I had to forgive her in my heart. To me, I just had to say, God, I forgive her. I do honestly forgive her. I know that you understand that I do not ever want to see her again, that I do not want to talk to her. I do not want to have any contact at all with her, but I have to forgive her. because it wasn't, she wasn't suffering for what she had. It was me. I had to forgive so I could move forward. And that's what I made that decision to forgive Sally Sue. And honestly, I know it wasn't that day or the next, but things got better. I stopped just thinking about her all the time, because I had dealt with it and I was putting her in the past and I was moving forward. Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. What about, so some people are saying, but what if what if it's still happening? So how did you deal with forgiving even when the divorce, like even during the separation and divorce?
Forgiving Joe? Mm-hmm. To be honest with you guys, probably it took me a while, because I was so, and I just have to be honest with you, I was so hurt and so devastated and felt so abandoned till I was mad at God. God, why did you do this? God didn't do it. God didn't do it. I had to come to grips with that. It wasn't God. It wasn't God. It was the devil. Joe made this decision. It wasn't God. And I had to come to realize that. And so it took me a while in my heart to forgive Joe. It took us getting back together for me to ask him to forgive me. He asked me to forgive him for what he had done before I asked him to forgive me. And after we got back together, it wasn't long before I really realized how much I had done that caused the breakup of our marriage. I really did. So, did that answer that?
Mm-hmm. So how did you deal with when you got remarried? A lot of people were saying, did you just jump in 100%? Then did you transition into it? I know you actually got remarried.
Yes, we did.
But did you start living together before that?
No, we didn't. It's because one of the reasons I was 350 miles away from where he lived. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't but about 6 or 7 weeks from the time he asked me to come back that we remarried. We wanted to remarry the week after our first marriage. We had decided that. We wanted to keep the June the 7th is the first day we married. And he said, and he came up with this. He said, I want us to always celebrate that one too when we get back together. And I said, so we chose the 14th of June, the week after. So, but I went over about 3 days before we married, and then we married, and he knew that it would take us a while, but yes, that's something I started fulfilling very quickly.
Someone asked, so what made him decide to come back and ask you to take him back?
Well, I can't speak for Joe. That's something that you would have to ask him. But I feel like it's because he came back to his core values and his core being. And the fact that he is a good man down deep inside. He was and still is a good man. And I think he missed the children. He missed the family. Mm-hmm. He missed just the whole, I think he missed being Joe. He missed being the person that he missed that. But he also realized that he could not be the same person to me and to the children. He was wonderful he was great to the children, but he knew that he had to change when it came to me, and he was willing to do that, and I was willing to give him the opportunity to do that.
Did the kids ever meet Sally Sue?
No, I meant No, I mean, we went to church with them, but no, they don't. Mm-mm. They were too young, no. It tore her up when he would leave, and it would tear him up because she saw it as, oh, Daddy's leaving again, you know, and he's not coming back. And I can remember a conversation, and I'm probably going to start crying, but I'm sure if Joanna's still listening, that she remembers that when he set her down, she was just bawling her head off, and he had to go and do something for a company. And she said, but you're not coming back. And he said, babe, I am coming back. He said, I will come back. He said, I'm leaving. I've got to go for business, but I'm coming back. And he said, if I don't come back, it's because God is taking me to heaven, and I will see y'all there. And he said, I promise you that when I leave from now on, that I will come back. You can be assured of that. And so what was the question? I've got to cry now. But, you know,
and then he honored it.
And he honored it, you know. He and I just knew, you know, that was his heart, and that's what he wanted.
Mm-hmm. What was the question? I don't remember.
I don't know what it made me think of that, so I don't know.
Yeah, no, that was good. So how things were different, and that's what you said. You said, so how were.
Oh, yes. And so after about 3 years, he was just tired of traveling. And he was not, the money was great, but there was no gratification in it. There was no satisfaction in it. And so we started talking, and it was an aspiration, really. We started talking, what if we could help marriages? You know, we're getting in a good place with our marriage. What if I could put a program together that maybe would help marriages? And I said, you know, that would be wonderful, because there was nothing out there that helped us. You know, there was nothing out there that helped us. And that's how Marriage Helper started. Mm-hmm. It's from an aspiration we had to help marriages.
And then how was it different? Because I've heard you say this before, where you stood up for yourself more.
Oh, yeah. Yes. That was the question.
Yeah.
How did I? Yes. In our second marriage, I was determined that I was going to have a voice in our marriage. And it took me, some, a while to be comfortable in that, because 15 years I had not had one. But as the years went by, and as I have grown, and I very much am my own person now. And like I say, I'm happy to be Joe Beam, but now when I am
Joe Beam's wife.
Do I look like Joe Beam? Joe Beam's wife, really. And I love that. But when I'm asked who I am now, I'm Alice Beam. And I like who I am. I like the person I am. In fact, I love the person I am. I love myself right now. I do. I like who I am.
Mm-hmm. What was the question? I think I read it from someone up here, or at least it gave me the idea of it. Oh, yes. What would you say to people who don't have kids?
That don't have kids?
Right.
Any relationship you go into, guys, if you're married, I'm sure you're asking this from a married point. Any relationship is going to have their problems. It may look like the grass is green. It may look like this person is perfect, but I guarantee you there are going to be problems. If you love the person you're with, although you may not like them right now and think you don't love them, but if you loved them once, you can learn to appreciate, respect them, and grow to love them again. That's exactly what Joe and I did. first of all, we learned to respect each other very much, which we had never done, neither one of us in our first marriage. We learned to respect each other, to value the other person, to see them as a flawed human being, but accept the flaws and all. Because, none of us, I'm not perfect, nobody, Joe is not perfect, nobody's perfect. Kimberly's not perfect, Joanna's not perfect, nobody is perfect. But if you accept the flaws and work, if you've had something, you can build on it and make it even better than it was before. Mm-hmm. That's the way I feel.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are asking, so when they heard you say, I found my voice, I would speak up for myself. So how did you do that without being rude or disrespectful or angry? How would you say, no, this is what I want to do, or this is how I expect you to treat me?
That's right. I had gotten where, and it took me if you've never done it, it's a learned technique. It really is. And I got to the point, Joe, I see that you see it that way, but can you see why I see it this way? This is the way I see it. I understand, I respect the way you see that, or want to do that, but, can't there be, what about this way? Wouldn't that work just as well? You have to see it from where the other person's coming from, but they need to see it from where you're coming from too. But you have to give respect when you're doing that. You can't say you're an idiot for looking at it. Are you an idiot to think that way? You can't say that. Don't be such a dodo bug or whatever, or whatever it is. Can't you see it my way? But everybody has different views on things, and you have to respect where the other one's coming from.
Mm-hmm. How long did it take you to trust him again?
It took me, that was one thing going into it. When I was driving to Augusta, Georgia, for us to remarry, that was one thing that I talked to myself the whole way over there. I am going to trust him until he gives me reason not to. I am not going to look for things, look for things that he may be saying or doing or whatever that would make me not trust him. Because I knew that if I went into this relationship, when we got remarried, that if I tuned in on every little nitpicky thing, that, I could find tons of stuff. But I was going to trust him. He came in and say, I'm going to work, or I've got to go over here and bid on a job. He was working with his... When we first got back together, he was working with his brother's paving company. They have a big paving company, and he was working with them. I would trust when he walked out that door that he was going to do a bid on a job like he told me to. And I wasn't about to get in the car and follow him. I wasn't about to question him when I got back. Where did you go? Is that where I just decided that I was going to trust him. And that was as much from me as it was him. It really was.
Yeah.
Probably more for me than it was him.
Otherwise, you...
Yeah, I was...
obsess about every single thing.
I would obsess about... If I hadn't done that, I would obsess about everything. And I just knew I couldn't do that. I knew I couldn't.
Mm-hmm. So, when you look back at it, what were the big... And a lot of people have asked this, so just quickly, because I know mm-hmm. the answer to this. Did you have hope that your marriage was going to be put back together when you were divorced?
There were times when I had hope. There were times, and there were times when I would think about it, but I wouldn't let myself obsess on that, because I knew if I did, I did want it to be put back together, but I never talked to Joe about it. I never, I just went on about my life and working on myself. And then when he started softening and showing, that I could see a difference in him. Well, like I say, I had already moved, I had already started dating somebody. But that really got my attention. And so I just and it was several weeks before he actually called me and asked me if I would consider taking him back. But when he did, I knew, yes, I'm going to do it.
But you were divorced for 3 years.
I didn't think about it all that time. It was
more. It was more when he started changing.
It was more when he started changing. Is when I started thinking about it.
A lot of people are asking this question. I don't know that I've ever asked you this question. Was the divorce process a financial fight?
No. I had a very, that was so many years ago, and it's hard for me to think back on it. But I had a very mean lawyer. But Joe really, when we finally divorced, he didn't have any money. And even at that point, I was still hurt and mad. I did not want to fight. I didn't, even in the divorce, I didn't want to fight. I just didn't. That's just not, I just didn't. So it was not a financial thing,
But when he came back, it wasn't, what was his reason? Was it only for the kids? Was it because of the life that you all had that he missed?
I actually think he missed me. Like I said, I'm sure he wanted us, he wanted me. I think he missed us all. I think he missed me, the children, and just that family unit. I think he missed, I actually think he missed my family. And I know I missed his family. And I think he just missed that whole family unit. I really do.
Another question a lot of people asked was, so how did you smooth it over with the families? How did you get the families on board?
Well, I went to the family and I told them. And of course they were, like I say, they had thought the world of Joe. They were not in a good place for Joe the 3 years that he was divorced. But they had loved Joe. My daddy bird hunted with him, my brothers, But they understood where I was coming from because they were good Christian people, and the core values that they had instilled in me were in them too, The only thing they needed to see from Joe is that he was serious in wanting to make the family a family again, that he was not going to hurt me and the children. It was awkward, I'm not lying to you. The first Thanksgiving was kind of awkward, but by Christmas it was getting a little easier because I told them, I said, I'm going to take him back. I want y'all to stand behind me. I want you to support me. I want him to be able to come to Thanksgiving, Christmas, and if he's not welcome, I won't be there because I will be with him and the children. And they said, no, we want you to come. We want you to come. We want him to come. And so within a year or so, he was back bird hunting and all with my brothers and my dad. So, it didn't take long. And of course, his family accepted me in too. So, yeah.
So when you think back to that, all that you went through, what were the greatest lessons that came from that for you?
Oh, wow. The greatest lessons were that the only person that you can control is you. I had to learn that the hard way. I could not control anything about my life but me. I couldn't control anything like that. That I did, I had a deeper understanding of what it means to really rely on yourself and the faith that you have in God, that He's going to get you through, because I always had a backup. I always had people, but this is something I wanted to do, and I wanted to prove to myself, and it gave me a greater faith. It did. It really did. It taught me that I am a valuable person, that I do deserve to be heard. My thoughts, what I'm thinking, is worthy of being heard. It's okay if I have a different opinion than he has. It's okay. Things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what is the encouragement you would give to those who have joined us today?
Guys, just keep on loving your children if you have children, loving yourself, working on yourself. When you do have opportunity to communicate with your husband, do it not in a harsh way, but not to bring in what we call horsemen, the beating each other up and accusing each other. But try to see where your husband is coming from or your wife is coming from at this point. What's happening in their life that's causing them to maybe be in this situation or have this mindset right now. Just try to put yourself in their shoes. Try to see where they're coming from.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. I love it. Everyone had a lot of questions that we couldn't get to, so I encourage people to go back and listen to the replay because some of it was mentioned at the beginning part of it. But a lot of you hit the nail on the head. This was back like 10 or 20 minutes ago, but people said, thank you for taking him back because now we have marriage helper and we have hope because of what you did.
That is, and I still think about that, and I tell couples that in the workshop.
Mm-hmm.
The blessing in all of this is marriage helper, is the fact that one of the blessings is Kimberly. Kimberly is a blessing. Another blessing is that Joanna has grown. And she's a wonderful, lovely young lady. She's a wonderful mother. We have, and we've been able, through the grace of God, and Joe's working in research to help so many couples. And that is a blessing. And that part of it has been worth all of the pain and the agony that we went through to be able to have a story that we can share with other people to let you know that there is hope out there, that things can be terrible, but there is a way to get through it, that there is a path. There is actually a love path that you can follow, and you'll fall back in love.
Mm-hmm. I don't think you're looking at me in the comments, but everyone's saying thank you.
You're welcome. I wish I could have seen every one of you, but
she wants to see your faces.
I give you a big hug.
How beautiful you are. Your inspiration. They love your shirt.
Oh. Well, thank you.
All the things. Next time we'll just host this in the back porch with sweet tea.
And y'all come join us.
Y'all just come join. And it'll be a fun time. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope this gives you hope.
Yes.
And we will see you next time.